Senator Hughes.
No, that's all right. What else would we expect,
Senator
though?
Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I mean, it's just extraordinary. There is absolutely nothing controversial about this bill. We have claims from those opposite all across the chamber that they're all about transparency. But what they also claim regularly is that renewables are cheap. Well, they're free, apparently, like electricity in WA, according to Senator Brockman's contribution. But they're cheap and they're going to be so reliable and they're going to really power us forward, and the whole economy is going to thrive under this great free renewable energy. Of course, the transition to it is also going to be cheap, according to those opposite, which is just a fantasy. But this is just extraordinary that those opposite who purport that renewables are going to be such a great contributor don't actually want the Australian people to see at all, at any stage, at any opportunity, how it is actually coal that keeps the lights on. It's actually coal that keeps Australia's economy powering ahead. And in fact, this surplus that we were hearing about from Senator Ayres earlier, the very slim surplus, is actually off the back of the resources sector, that sector that you guys actually want to tear down at every opportunity that the Greens want to remove from the Australian economy as fast as possible, that we see different resource taxes being put in place to ensure that there are less coal and gas projects going forward to appease the Greens and some of the crossbench. But they don't want anyone to know that their beloved renewables actually contribute very little to the energy grid, that the lights, the air conditioning, the heating, the businesses that require energy to function in our schools, in our hospitals, that power is actually generated by coal. And in fact, all of their little pet projects are also funded by coal. It's the resource sector that funds them. It's the resource sector that provided a surplus. Yet those opposite are absolutely determined to ensure that that isn't available to future Australian economies. So I don't understand why there's anything controversial here at all about this bill. It's just about allowing Australians to have more clarity, more uniformity, more transparency. Remember, that was the big word. No, they don't want transparency because then people would know how much power comes from coal. How much power comes from coal. So that's what they're worried about, that Australians will actually see through this claim that renewable energy is cheap, the transition's going to be cheap, that it's actually going to provide reliable, affordable baseload power, because anyone who has any sense, any understanding, any intellectual capabilities really can see that that is all not true. So all Senator Duniam's trying to ensure, and we know productivity is actually the greatest way to ensure that inflation comes down. Inflation will come down as productivity increases. And, we know that Australians being able to make affordable choices when it comes to their power, that we will see productivity improve because they'll be able to make informed decisions. But over there, on the other side, government's not interested in productivity. It's interested in handouts. And I thought it was interesting this morning listening to 2GB, one of the biggest radio stations in Sydney, highest rating talkback show across the country, and what some of the punters, some of the everyday Australians who listened to the budget last night had to say. And of course we won't hear it from any of those opposite, that this was a typical Labor budget. Take money from hard workers and give it to lazy bludgers. OK. So once again, Ben, the workers who carry this country get screwed over. There is nothing in this budget for the workers. And I think that's what we could see. It's all about little handouts. That's not your money, it's taxpayers' money, and it's taxpayers' money that actually comes from the resources sector. But, I feel like we're on a loop at this point in time. And then we know that the parliament was recalled last year because they were going to do such great stuff to ensure energy power bills were coming down, but they didn't come down. They've continued to increase, and they continue to increase at a much higher rate than anyone expected. And the thing is that a $500 handout, temporary bill relief, now it's going to be welcomed by those families that are eligible, because it's not all families that are eligible. It's not everyone that's going to get this. It's only some. And, congratulations to Senator Ayres, who actually could say the word 275, the figure. It's the first time we've heard it since the election from a Labor member. But All Australians were promised $275. But it's not all Australians, because those opposite never govern for all Australians. They only govern for people that vote for them. And we know that not all Australians are going to receive a $500 assistance to pay for their bills. It's only some Australians. And in fact, it'll be those Australians who are the working poor, the people that are working, that will miss out. The people that are actually struggling to work and pay their own way to put the roof over their head and feed their family. They're the ones that won't be ineligible from this government, because those opposite, they don't like the people that work to make this economy better. They don't like people who work hard to pay for their own retirement. They don't like people who contribute and take personal responsibility and individual responsibility for their family. They don't like them over there. They only like those who do what they're told. They only like those who vote for them. They certainly have never governed for all Australians. So maybe a little bit of a digression there, but I thought it was important after Senator Adair's contribution to ensure that we discuss the fact that the energy bill relief isn't going to all Australians, it's going to some Australians, and it's going in conjunction with the states. So we don't even know what it's really going to look like. It's a maximum of $500. Not everyone's going to get $500, depends what state you live in. Depends what the state government decides to do. And that's where we'll see when the rubber hits the road. And we know that over the past 12 months, since those opposite came to government, that the Australian family is $25,000 worse off. Now, we hear over there childcare. Well, there's a lot of families who don't have kids in childcare. I mean, that might be surprising to you, but there are a lot of families, Australian families, with teenagers, kids who've moved beyond the early learning stage, kids that have moved beyond childcare, kids that are actually eating families out of house and home. I've got a couple of boys, and trying to keep the food up to them is absolutely impossible. So not everyone uses childcare with families. Some have teenagers, some have big kids. But the average family is $25,000 worse off under this government, thanks to increased mortgage payments, increased power bills and the increased cost of groceries. And it's some sort of magic pudding that they seem to think exists, that you can hand out all this money, give it to people, increase payments, increase welfare payments, put all this money out there, but somehow it's not going to have an inflationary impact. Every single economist is saying that you have now put it onto the RBA to continue to lift rates. So guess who's going to be paying for that? People that have homeowners, mortgage holders. Mortgage holders are going to be paying more. Small businesses with loans are going to be paying more. These are the families that are going to be the hardest hit, but those opposite don't care. They just don't care about those Australian families. It's only niche little groups that are going to be targeted by their assistance that are going to get any benefit at all. And it will be temporary. It will be a sugar hit, because we know that this will be inflationary. And this is now your budget. You own it. So if inflation isn't down under 4% by next year, as you claim it will be, under 4%, it's a big drop, real quick, as you inject more money into the economy. We know that's not going to happen. And you will own it. But to Senator Duniam's bill, which I actually don't even know from Senator Ayres' contribution whether or not you're supporting it. I mean, it was just bizarre. It's a yes or no, really. That could have helped. It was really just a speech that went round in circles on a whole range of issues, but not one about the actual bill. So this bill, why would you not give Australians access to transparency? Why would you not give Australians the opportunity to see where their power is coming from? And why wouldn't you then make every government going forward, and, you know, we know Senator Farrell and the hubris that apparently this Labor government's never going to lose ever. Never, ever, ever. We know that's not the case. That will happen, Senator Farrell, will happen one day. But by doing putting these sort of things in place, it's going to be every government going forward is going to have to table something from the Productivity Commission showing where Australia's energy mix is coming from, so that we can start to see, and then the Australian public can see, is this talk about cheaper renewables powering our economy forward, that we're apparently going to be some renewable energy superpower in a minute and a half, according to Senator Ayres? It's all overnight, all easy, all coming quick. You know, Australians can see whether you're telling them the truth. Australians will be able to see if you're telling them the truth. And, you know, this confidence that you have in technology that does not yet exist. But this confidence that you have in it, that it's all coming down the pipeline and, woohoo, we're all going to be renewables. It's going to be cheap. Businesses aren't going to suffer. We're going to have Tom and Go smelter up in the Hunter. That'll be kicking along all good. No problems at all because, I don't know, wind will be blowing somewhere. That, technology of batteries that hasn't even been generated. It doesn't exist. Not possible. But somehow or other it's coming down the pipeline and those businesses are going to be able to continue. The Australian people deserve to know whether what you're telling them is the truth. They deserve to know what every government's telling them is the truth and that they can see where their power is coming from. And when they're told that, don't worry, we're going to close a raring in 2025, we're going to take 25% of the power out of the New South Wales market that comes from a coal-fired power station, don't worry, we don't need to worry about it because coal-fired power station's not contributing that much more to the grid anymore. But it is. It's the only thing that keeps the lights on. We're talking over 70% of power comes from coal. But those opposites seem to think that Australians are just going to go along, not worried about massive coal-fired power generators coming out of the market, and somehow they're not going to get rolling blackouts. And see, when you get less supply, you get prices going up. That's the whole, supply and demand thing that they pretty much covered in Economics 101 on day one. And when you have less supply and the same demand, prices are going to go up, and they're going to keep going up. And that little sugar hit of $500 that some families will get, not all, some, that'll be long gone. It's already been absorbed. It's not really going to make any difference to anyone's bottom line in their household budget. It's going to be a little sugar hit that's going to contribute to put pressure on inflation. It's going to mean that mortgages go up. And guess what that means for people that are investors in the market? Because the Greens might be interested in this. That means rents are going to keep going up. Because when investors buy houses that renters then rent, if their mortgage payments go up, so do rents. It's just how it works. And then if that's not allowed to happen, or it just gets too hard for that investor, guess what they do? They sell it. And then it's not in the rental pool anymore either. They put it on the market and they take it out of the rental pool. Guess what that does, guys? That actually also reduces supply. And guess what that means? Again, day one, Economics 101, supply and demand, reduce supply, demand stays the same or demand goes up, prices go up. That's what happens. Yet somehow over here when they were dozing during that first day, and I mean economics can be a bit dry sometimes, but it's kind of important and it's sort of what we look after here. Kind of important. When you take supply out, demand's either the same or going up, your prices are going to go up. And that's what's happening with power, and that's what Senator Duniam's bill is all here about, so that Australians can see what's happening, how they can best manage their own family budget at a time when they are under increasing pressure, and in fact will continue to be under increasing pressure because this budget is just going to create more inflationary problems. But what we know now is those opposite own it. You own it. You have to tell the Australian people why you are going to put more pressure on their mortgages, why you're going to put the price of everything up, and inflation's just going to continue to head north.
Senator O'Sullivan.